There are some books you choose to read. You hear about them online, they're recommended everywhere. They're sitting in neat little piles in a bookshop with a sticker on you telling you why they're the next best thing. And then there are the other kind of books, the ones that quietly find you. That's where The Full Moon Coffee Shop, its sequel, Best Wishes from the Full Moon Coffee Shop, and the third book, Dreamers of the Full Moon Coffee Shop, well, that's how they felt like to me. They didn't arrive with a lot of noise. They didn't feel like books I needed to analyse or review or hold up against some imaginary standard of important literature. They just arrived. And sometimes that's the best kind of reading experience. I'm Darth James, you know what to do, you know where the good stuff is. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to talk about a coffee shop with cats. So let's picture this. You're walking through Kyoto. It's night time, the streets are calm in the way that cities sometimes feel at night, where everything feels just a little bit softer than it does during the day. Your mind is busy. No kind of big midlife crisis moment or whatever, just the usual stuff. Work, life decisions. That quiet sense that you're somewhere in the middle of your own story and you haven't quite figured out what the next chapter is. Then you notice a coffee shop. Small, warm lights in a window. You're fairly sure it wasn't there before, but tonight it is, and you step inside and you discover something slightly unusual. The cafe is run by cats. Not cartoon cats. Not talking animals in that way fantasy stories usually handles it. Just calm, observant cats who somehow run this place with complete confidence. They serve coffee, they bake cakes, and they can look at people in the way cats sometimes do, like they understand more about you than what they're letting on. People who find this cafe are all carrying something with them, a question, a doubt, a crossroads. And while you sit under the light of the full moon, the cats will do something slightly unusual as well. They read the stars, and they will gently tell the person sitting in front of them something they need to hear, not because they want to hear it. It's what they need. I've read a lot of books over the years, and there's probably obvious if you've been on this channel for a while. And something that happens when you read a lot of books, you start seeing the machinery behind the stories. You notice structure, pacing. You notice the way a plot is kind of assembled. Sometimes that's interesting, sometimes it pulls you out of the experience. But every now and then, you come across a book that bypasses that part of your brain entirely. These stories aren't trying to impress you. They're not trying to show off. They're just inviting you to sit down for a while. Each chapter follows someone whose life has drifted slightly out of alignment. A musician who had lost his job, and let's be real. Someone chasing a dream that's slowly slipping through their fingers. Someone who feels like a version of their life they imagined is not arriving. And for a while they sit there in that cafe. They drink coffee, they eat cakes that somehow feel like comfort in food form. They talk and the cats read the stars. The advice they give isn't life-changing. It's not like this big cinematic, you will do this, my son. It's small, it's quiet. Sometimes it's a reminder of characters, what the characters already know but forgotten. Sometimes it's that small nudge, someone poking you on the shoulder. Life tends to move in really small adjustments more often than giant big turning gears. There's a particular feeling I had when reading this book, and it's hard to explain without sounding like I'm trying to turn it into something bigger than it is. Felt like the reading equivalent of taking a breath you didn't realise you'd been holding. So much modern storytelling is built on urgency, stakes, constant movement. Everything needs escalation. These books don't work like that. They move at a speed of quiet conversation. And that pace gives the characters room to think, and more importantly, it gives the reader room to think too. You start noticing those little moments, the descriptions of the cafe at night, the way the characters react when they hear something about their life that maybe is a little bit too close to the truth. The way someone, well, I hope, sometimes shows up in small forms. I was lucky enough to get my hands on Dreamers of a Full Moon Coffee Shop early thanks to a friend. And reading the third book felt like returning to a place you visited before. You walk through the doors and the cats are still there. The coffee still smells the same, and for a moment you have that small sense of familiarity that comes from stepping back into a world that hasn't changed. And there's something comforting about that. Some books series grow louder as they go along, bigger stakes, more spectacle. This doesn't. It just exactly what it was from the beginning, a quiet place where people come to listen. I think the reason these books work for me because they arrived at a very strange space where most of us are currently living in. We're not in the beginning, we're not at the ending, we're in the middle. Careers, relationships, life, stuff, processing, grief, whatever. The middle of trying to figure out what kind of life we're actually building. Stories about the middle of things are surprisingly rare. Most fiction likes clean arcs, beginning, ending, but life is mostly in the middle chapters, and these books understand that. The marketing for this series describes it as stories filled with music, stars, cats, cakes, and healing, which is true. But it feels like a slightly clinical way of describing what these books actually do. Because they don't feel like a lesson. They feel more like conversations you didn't know you needed as a reader. That leaves you thinking about the small things in your life that might need adjusting. Not fixing, just adjustments. Maybe that's why these stories work so well. They're not trying to solve your problems, they're just offering you a moment to sit down and think. I'm going to say this, if you enjoy Japanese fiction, or fiction in general that focuses on like small human moments, if you like stories that feel reflective rather than loud, or you're currently in that familiar stage of life where you're figuring things out, you might want to visit the Full Moon Coffee Shop. Because every now and then, a story appears at exactly the right moment, and when it does, it's worth paying attention to. You never know what the cats might see in the stars. And sometimes hearing the right thing at the right time is what a person really needs.